guys, welcome back to my channel. As promised, here I am going to do a sit down where I'm going to talk to you about having a newborn during lockdown. I'm currently in my parents' room. As you will see at the start, Summer is fast asleep on the bed, and I am currently waiting for her to wake up because she does only sleep for like 20-30 minutes unless she's in the car. So go and grab yourselves a drink, grab yourselves whatever you want, a bit of a snack. I've got a bottle of water, and yeah, come and join me for a chat. So, I thought I would talk to you because there's a lot of people out there who have had babies during lockdown where they've had to go to the hospital, they've had to give birth, with everything that's been going on. But when my waters broke, I think coronavirus was kind of in the news. Now, I don't watch the news very often. I'm not one that's going to sit there and just be like, oh, this is going to happen. We need to watch just to see what's going to happen, things like that. I'm not one for that. So I think he puts it down on your life kind of thing. You're just waiting for something to happen. So I'm not one for watching. So I think it was in the news. I think it was in the news from like December time, something like that. But when my waters broke on the 29th of Feb, I went into hospital and everything was normal. It wasn't that you had to have a face mask. It wasn't that you had to have the gloves on, the face shields, the PPE, nothing like that. It was literally, it wasn't even talked about. So I thought I'd come and talk to you about it today, just because I know there's a lot of people out there that have struggled, and there's not many people that are going to just sit there and openly talk about it, as to how they felt. Did they feel depressed? Did they feel anxious? Things like that. So I thought I'd come talk to you about it today, and hopefully some people will watch the video, and it will spur them on to talk to people, to be open about it and talk about how they feel, whether they have been depressed, whether they have felt anxious. So hopefully it will help you all. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new, press the subscribe button. I am getting round to doing more videos. It has just been a bit hectic lately. So yeah, so shall we get into it? So, when my waters broke on the 29th of February, as I say, I went into hospital, everything was fine. So there wasn't any PPE, you could just walk into the hospitals, you could sanitize your hands if you wanted to. It was normal. So when I went in at 4 o'clock in the morning, they put a pessary in, because my waters had broken, but my cervix hadn't dilated. So they put that in, and then they sent me home, and I was at home all day on the Saturday. But luckily enough, my parents were coming down that weekend just for a daily visit. So they were coming down on the Saturday. So they were leaving at 6. So I rang them at 4 and I said, look, I'm going to the hospital. So my mum bought her clothes because Mum was going to stay for 2 weeks initially, whilst we got used to having Summer around and we got used to things. So they came down, I rang them, they brought everything with them. So everything was normal for the Saturday. I had contractions throughout the day. I was noting it down, I was taking my temperature, I was benching on the ball, things like that. But then it got to, they said to come back at 4 o'clock on the Sunday morning. So we did. And as I got up to go, I was having contractions like every minute. It was cramping like mad. It was like spurges of period pain. That's all I can describe it as. Now, I suffer with IBS, and I suffer with really bad IBS where I have it like day in, day out if I eat the wrong things. So I am used to being in pain. I'm used to having that pain there. But this was like a spurge of period pain for like 30-40 seconds, then it'd go away. Give it a minute, it'd come back. So I went to hospital. I went onto the ward, which was downstairs. They put me in a bed, and I stayed there all weekend. My mum stayed there, Darren stayed there with me. They went out, they got things to eat, they went for a walk. I felt really sorry for them because I was there and I was getting food and I was getting things to eat and something to drink, and I was allowed to have a sleep whenever I wanted because I got a bed. They hadn't, they just got really uncomfortable chairs. So I did feel sorry for them, and I'm really, really grateful that they were there through the whole experience. So until the Sunday evening, I think it was around 2 a.m, I was having, obviously the contractions were getting worse. I was walking around, I was bouncing on the ball, and then they were checking my cervix, and my cervix was stuck behind. It dilated, but it was stuck behind her head. So they had to try and pull it out. Now, that was the most uncomfortable thing I think I've ever had done. Don't mind giving birth. That was okay, but it was really uncomfortable. So they did that, and then I just wanted to push, and I was just having constant contractions. So I think they took me upstairs about 4 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning on the Monday morning. But it wasn't until 7:02 that I actually gave birth, and it got to like 6:30, and her heartbeat was dropping. I was really dehydrated and really struggling, so I was on a drip from the water. I'd got Darren putting water on my mouth and I couldn't take it. He was trying to give me paracetamol, but I can't swallow tablets that well, so he has to break those paracetamols down and then give them to me like that. It did become a bit of a nightmare. And the doctor kept coming in and he was like, if you're not going to push her out, we're going to have to take her down to surgery because she really needs to come out. And I didn't want a C-section. I didn't want forceps. I didn't want any help. I didn't have epidural. I literally just had gas and air and paracetamol and pethidine. So I was determined that I was going to push her out. So towards the end, I think it must have been about 7 o'clock, they did the snip. So they cut me, and as they cut me, she literally just flew out with the next couple of contractions. And I was so relieved. It was so... I think people would agree that you can't explain the feeling when you've actually given birth, because literally the pain just goes. And I felt like I was kind of back to normal, which is really strange. It was like, I felt like I was tired, really, really tired, like I'd got no colour in my face, and I hadn't got the energy to do anything. And I was absolutely shattered. But it was kind of weird because you do sort of like the pain goes and you do sort of go back to normal. You haven't got any feeling that you have just given birth. Well, I didn't, which I thought was really strange. So they did my stitches, and I kept reading online and people kept saying that the worst part of having a baby is having a wee afterwards or having a poo afterwards. Now, TMI, but I can say the poo, yes, because you just feel like the whole of your body is going to fall out. But the wee, after 20 minutes, I got stitched up. I was walking around and I was like, I really need to go for a wee. So I went for a wee, and they asked me to wee in this pot. And I said to the woman, I was like, no, I've been on a drip. I'm going to wee a lot. And I did. The pot was full to the brim. And she said to me, she went, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to empty that. And I was like, well, I did say I needed a big wee. But anyway... So so after 20 minutes I was up and about an hour and a half later I went and had a shower, and I was really looking forward to having a shower, looking forward to washing my hair, putting my clothes on and just being comfy, ready for the day. But I went in the shower and it was literally directly opposite to where I was upstairs, and it literally just trickled out of the wall. Now, the woman had said to me, this is really nice shower, it's really nice and powerful, you're going to feel really nice afterwards. And I was like, oh yeah, nice power shower. That'll do me great. It just trickled out. That was it. And I was like, well, this is weird. So anyway, I had a shower, washed my hair, went back in, we got summer dressed, and then they moved me downstairs to another ward where I said to them, am I able to go home the same day? And they kept saying, yes, you'll be able to go home the same day. So I was happy with that. But then they came round and did her observations shortly after we got down there, and her temperature wouldn't rise above 36. It was quite low. So they put her underneath a UV light. Now, they did this twice, and her temperature kept dropping back down again. So towards the evening, they took her up to neonatal and put her in an incubator. Now, I found that quite emotional to see her in there, because I'd given birth to this little baby that was 6 pounds, and they said at the birth that she was healthy and everything was fine, all her observations were fine. But then it took me to move down to the ward, them to put her underneath the UV light and do her observations every 30 minutes, to then find out that she needed to go to neonatal. Now, that was quite worrying for me. And then Darren had returned, because I'd sent them both home just to go and have a sleep, just so that they could refuel. Because Darren was going to stay with me in the night, and then Mum was going to stay during the day if I needed to stay in. But they had said that I was coming home. But by the time she'd gone up to the neonatal, I knew that I wasn't coming home. And they said that they needed to put a cannula in her hand for some antibiotics, and I was a bit like, why do you need to do it? You know, what's wrong with her? But they just said it was just in case of an infection because her temperature was low. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So we went up to neonatal and they said, we'll bring her back down when she's ready. They brought her back down and she looked so tiny, and she got this big cannula in her hand with like a, I don't know what you call it, like a splint that was wrapped around her hand. We couldn't put her arm in a baby grow because it was just too big to put in. It was such a shame. And they came round every 4 hours to put antibiotics in, and they came and to do observations in the night so it'd wake her up. And it was heartbreaking to see that that's what, you know, your daughter was going through that. And at this point they said to me, you know, you're going to be in for 3 days, because she needed to finish this course of antibiotics, or they could have sent us home and we'd have come back for the antibiotics. But the doctor said, no, we'd rather keep you in, we need to keep an eye on her temperature. Now, it wasn't until a few weeks ago I received a letter. Well, it was a few weeks ago because we were in Cornwall. I received a letter from the NHS to say that what her infections were, and I was quite upset to realise that she had got hypothermia and sepsis, and this is what they treated, but they hadn't told us in hospital. And to understand that she got that and they hadn't said anything to me, because she could have got that sepsis from me. I mean, I got sepsis, but they hadn't treated me for it. I mean, yes, it is a really, you know, serious illness, and you can be really, really seriously ill with it. But they just didn't say, and that is quite worrying. That this little life had just come, you know, just come into the world, and they were treating her for hypothermia and sepsis already. It was really heartbreaking to know that. But she's fine now. She's absolutely fine. She's had her injections and things like that, so she's okay. So, going back to when I came out of hospital. So I came out of hospital on the Thursday, and Mum was going to stay initially for 2 weeks, but because I'd been in, you know, half a week already, she'd said, you know, if you want me to stay that 3rd week, I've got it booked off at work, I just need to let them know it's okay, I can stay. And I said, I'll let you know at the end of the 2nd week. We'll see how things go. So I went home and I kept having like out of body experiences. I can't describe what it was like, but it was like, it's really weird. It's like you go really dizzy and then it's like you're not really there. And I had these for days and it just wouldn't go. And they also sent me out with iron injections, and the woman said to me, she said, they're going to sting when you put them in. And I was a bit like, okay, yeah, whatever, but I don't really want to do them myself. And she was like, you're going to have to. I did 3, if I'm honest, and then I didn't do any more because they stung, and the bruises that they left as well. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I was okay the first week. I was fine back at home. I mean, my auntie and my uncle came down on the weekend. I was up, I was dressed, I was back in my jeans, I was in my jumper. You know, I was fine. Yes, I was tired and I was sleep deprived and I was having out of body experiences, but I felt really, really well in myself. I even went out on, I think the Sunday, I went to Dunelm for a cup of coffee with my mum and Darren just to get out of the house. And obviously my dad had come down and things like that. But I felt really well and I was like, oh, this is going well, considering that I've had depression and anxiety in the past. And it has been really bad, and I was on medication for it, but I'd come off my medication a year ago. So people were kind of like, are you going to be okay? Are you going to need to go back on your antibiotics, antidepressants? And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to fight this myself. So I felt really well. And then towards the end of the 2nd week, baby blues kicked in. And I cried at like the slightest thing. So, like, if someone was crying and Darren had said to me, or do something different, like, try this instead, I would cry because it wasn't my way of how I wanted to do it. It was somebody else telling me what to do. It was positive criticism. Couldn't take it. I cried and cried and cried. I'd sit in the night and I'd be doing the night feeds and I would cry. And I'd just be like, what is wrong with me? I need to shake myself up. I need to get, you know, back to being my normal self. And then at the end of the second week, as we'd said to my mum, you know, stay the extra week. And lockdown was in talks then, and they were on about the country being locked down because of all this virus that was going round. I mean, we had been out with little one, we'd been to the registry office, we'd registered the birth, we'd been shopping, we'd gone shopping, and things had started going off the shelves. We couldn't get baby milk anywhere. Now she'd had Karen get in the hospital, and I was determined to put her on the Aldi Mamia milk because I'd heard so many good things about it, and we couldn't get any other milk anywhere. And she liked the Mamia milk, but it wasn't filling her up, so we went to Karen Gate because that's what I had when I was younger, that's what Darren had when he was younger. And I thought, if she's got big appetite, she needs to go on Karen Gate. So we couldn't get any milk. You know, it was going off the shelves. I was like, do I order it offline or things like that? But then we went to Asda shopping, and as I say, things were disappearing off the shelves. My mum rang my dad and said, is it time that we start stocking up? Because things are going off the shelves. And my dad had already said he'd been shopping, he'd got a few things. So we went and got like toilet rolls, baked beans, things you just put in your cupboard just to know that they're there. So we'd gone and done that. And Mum had really stocked us up before she did leave. And then on the on the Friday, my dad was driving down to collect my mum. And it was weird, and it still makes me feel quite emotional now. It was weird because the atmosphere was in the house was sad because Mum was leaving and because we were in Cornwall. I'm going to try not to cry because it is really sad. And I knew that if we did go into lockdown, it was going to be a long time before I would see the family. And so Mum left and I cried all afternoon. Mum cried all the way home. And it was really difficult again because the only time we'd cried when we left each other was the first time that they visited us in Cornwall. But Mum had gone. And then on the Sunday, they put us into lockdown. And they weren't sure how long it was going to be. So the plans for my mum and dad coming down every weekend and us going back were just shattered. We couldn't do anything. Darren's work, they weren't really taking it seriously about what was happening, to be honest. They hadn't, put anything in place. So they were saying that nobody would be furloughed. There was only 4 of them anyway, because it was just a small garage. Nobody would be furloughed. Everybody would stay at work. Yes, they'd stop the MOTs toward, down the line. So I was going to be at home on my own. And I felt so lonely at this point. And I cried every day. I literally cried. Summer developed an infection in her throat, so she lost her voice. So we had to change milk again. She developed colic, so she cried and cried and cried at tea time and at night time. So it just made everything seem so dark and depressing for me because I just thought everything that I was doing wrong. I couldn't do anything right because she would cry. She just wasn't happy. You couldn't put her down. You couldn't put her in a Moses basket for a nap. She'd only nap on you, and if you put her down during the day, she would cry. So she wouldn't go on a play mat. She wouldn't go in a swing. She wouldn't do anything. Nothing at all. So to have a shower, I'd have to wait for Darren to wake up, but then he'd stay up most of the night so he could hold her and give her her feeds. So then I would sleep and then I would do the day. But then Darren was tired, so then Darren would need to sleep until dinner time. So everything was really was difficult. And at this point, I think I knew that I wanted to move back to the Midlands to be with family when I was due with little one anyway, because she hasn't. Yes, we've got friends down there, but we haven't got family, and we hadn't got anybody to look after her when I'll go back to work. So during the lockdown, when it happened, I knew that we needed to move back. And just even thinking about having the conversation with Darren was really, really hard for me to do. And he'll probably watch this video and he'll probably be like, why was it hard? We've spoke about it. But it really was because I knew that Cornwall was his dream. It really was his lifelong dream to move to Perranporth, to be by the beach, to have surfing lessons for the little one, for her to go to school in Cornwall. I knew that it was his dream, and I'd managed to get the job for us to move there. So sitting down and having the conversation, I think it was 2 weeks into lockdown, and he'd been furloughed in the end because the work wasn't coming in. So he'd said, you know what, I'll go on furlough. So I sat down with him and I said, look, I think we need to move back. And he kind of agreed to a certain extent, and he kind of said that he'd been thinking about it too. And I said how lonely it was, and then I cried again. And, you know, he was like, okay, I understand if you're lonely, what are we going to do about moving back? And I said, well, I need to contact the estate agents because we were renting, we were stuck in a lease, we need to see what we need to do. But while Darren was on furlough, it was nice to have him there, and it was nice that we were all together, and we'd go out for like long drives across Cornwall, and you know, we'd go and see the sights, but we wouldn't get out the car, we'd just stay in the car. So it was about 4 weeks into lockdown. We contacted the estate agent. The plan was that we got till June the 10th to move out, and you know, we were going to move back, we were going to stay with Mum. My auntie and my uncle had said, you know, you can have the caravan until you find somewhere to live, until you find your jobs and things like that. So everything was in place to come back. And straight away, I felt happier. Look who's just woken up. Look who's that. Who's that in there? Say hi. Hi. Who's that? So once we decided that, you know, we were going to move, I did initially feel a lot happier, but then it was the stress of moving everything, because we had got a bungalow full of stuff, and obviously lockdown, we couldn't really go anywhere, and we couldn't really move just yet. But yes, I felt happier, but I still felt quite down and depressed. Now, I didn't tell anybody that I actually felt depressed because I didn't want to have to go to the doctors and go back on my medication, and the anxiety I felt with taking Summer out was unreal. Taking her out and needing to do a bottle while I was out, needing to change her nappy, things like that literally made me feel incredibly sick, because I was new to being a mum, and I didn't expect to be an anxious mom. I thought when we fall pregnant, I thought I'm gonna be well ready, you know, everything's gonna fall into place and everything will be fine. But no, literally the anxiety made me feel incredibly sick, and the feeling of depression. It was just, my life was dark again. It really was dark, and like, I loved Darren to bits, but even he couldn't make me get back up to the level I needed to be up. And constant phone calls with Mum while we couldn't come back, and constant phone calls with family, things like that. Nothing was making it feel any better, because we were still stuck in Cornwall, 249 mile away, in lockdown, not knowing when lockdown was going to finish, with hardly any food on the shelves, things like that. So it was really, really difficult. And now Darren was off work and we needed to go shopping. Now he's got kind of OCD, so he once we heard about the coronavirus, he was, you know, really upset about it, and he was really scared of catching it, so he wouldn't go anywhere. So we'd go shopping and he would wait in the car, or I would go shopping on my own, and then he would just look after the little one. But she is really clingy towards me, and she has been since she was born. So she will sit with people. She will definitely sit with people now. She definitely will. But if she's tired or she wants a bottle or things like that, if I'm there, she will settle with me. But if I'm not, she will settle, you know, if I'm not there and she's with Mum, things like that. What are you looking at? So it was quite difficult to go shopping. I'd have to go shopping when he was starting a feed. So then I knew that she'd take probably 45 minutes to take a bottle, because she is really slow at taking the bottles. And she's still on Veriflow teats now. She's not on Fast Flow, because she wears half of it more than anything. So I'd go and get the shopping, and queuing to go in. We didn't really have to do that in Cornwall. You kind of just walked in, because it was quite quiet. You've got people in face masks, and you know, people were going to the point where they were using like gas masks and things like that, which I thought were really, really unnecessary to do. Sanitising your hands before you go in. So we got, you know, sanitizer in the car. We put them in both cars. If you went out in both cars, then, you know, there'd be some there. But it was really, really difficult. And we weren't on the best of money. Darren had just been furloughed, so he'd got less money. I was just on maternity allowance, your basic maternity allowance. I wasn't getting anything from work. And I was getting child benefit. So the future, to me, was just a black hole. Because I was like, right, how are we going to afford the rent? How are we going to afford the bills? Just like everybody else that's gone through, you know, lockdown and being really stuck. I do apologise for the lighting. I don't know what's going on with it. So, yeah, just like everybody else, it was such a struggle and such a panic as to, you know, what are we going to do and are we going to be able to cope and things like that. So, for us to move back, I mean, we've been back probably over a month now, month and a half. I have completely changed. I feel like my mindset has completely changed. I'm up, I'm doing my hair, I'm doing my makeup. You know, she's up, she's dressed, I'm going out more or less every day. It's so much better. And I think if I was up here and we hadn't had lockdown, I would not have had near enough of the anxiety that I did as going out in Cornwall on my own because we didn't have parents there. But yeah, but lockdown was a really dark time, as for many of us. But having a newborn was hard. Because if she did cry, you couldn't just, you know, we did, but you couldn't just go out for a walk or just go, you know, go and walk around a shop or take her out so she wasn't on her own. You're still tired. So you just couldn't. And it was a really dark time for me. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, I have had problems with depression and anxiety in the past, and it was a lot darker in the past, but this was a dark time for me. And if I'd have started having thoughts again of not wanting to be here, I don't know what would have happened, if I'm honest. Because when I had those thoughts before, I went straight on medication and I took myself out of a situation that I shouldn't have been in, and I started to get better. Yes, I had anxiety for a little while where I didn't want to leave the house, but I really had to force myself to. Which is kind of like, some days I do get anxiety now where I'm like, oh, I've got to leave the house today, I really don't want to leave. Like today, I need to go to B&M today. I went to B&M yesterday, so I need to go to B&M today and I'm going to my auntie's. Now, if I wasn't going to my auntie's today, I wouldn't have left. I would have stayed in. Because it's easier to stay in, isn't it, with a baby? It's a lot easier to stay in. Because I know that she's got all of the things here that she needs, and I have to take bottles with me and things like that. But it is nice for her to get out and, you know, she'll go there and she'll sit with her great uncle and have a play. But yeah, it was a dark time. And I feel like, now looking back today, I feel like, and a lot of people will completely disagree with me and say you weren't, but I feel like I was the cause as to why she was quite a cry baby in the beginning, because I was anxious and I was depressed. But I wouldn't say that I felt really depressed and really, really dark times, you know, were in my mind. So I feel like she wouldn't have been such a cry baby, and I would have enjoyed having a newborn a lot more if it wasn't of lockdown, like many people. Being stuck in the house with someone that's got colic, somebody that's got a throat infection, is hard work. Definitely hard work. I do feel that I was sort of the cause for her being such a cry baby, and maybe I was the cause as to why she wouldn't go down and play on her, well, sit on her own, go on her playmat, go in a swinging chair. But I will say, as soon as we came back to my mum's, which this is really strange, and I've mentioned this to my mum, because my mum's a vicar, and when we were in the bungalow, we would put her in a Moses basket, and sometimes at night she'd go in a Moses basket, I would go in the shower, Darren would do the washing up, and then I'd go to bed, so I was there with her. And she wouldn't settle on her own. She would not lie on her own in that Moses basket. She would not sit on her own in the living room while I went and got a drink. She wouldn't go in a swing, as I said. She wouldn't go on a playmat, as I said. Nothing like that. She wouldn't do anything at all. She screamed to do it. But then we came back to Mum's, And as soon as we came in, we sat her in a bouncy chair, and she sat there on her own. It was strange. And then a week after, as I mentioned in one of my other videos, she literally went to sleep on her own with a dummy. She wouldn't take a dummy at the bungalow. So it was really, really weird. And I said to Mum, maybe there was something in the bungalow. Now, my mum, well, my grandma, gets rid of, like, nasty things that are in people's houses, like ghosts and things like that. And I've just got this feeling that there was something in there, because me and Darren used to joke at the flat that, oh, George has moved this, George has done that. But then when we were at the bungalow, we would hear, like, doors creaking and things walking across the floor. And it gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. But I'm thinking, would she, because babies tend to pick up on things, don't they? So would she have seen something and then thought, do you know what, I don't want to be in here? And the one night, she wasn't very old. She'd fell asleep on me. It was the night that she'd had her injections. And she went to sleep on me. And I had I don't know what you call them. It was like a night terror. But I was awake. And I was awake, but I was asleep. And I just kept seeing this man. And my mum and dad were talking to me in my dream to say, you know, if you don't... It's going to sound really stupid and people probably laugh. But if you don't start playing the piano, the man's going to take you. The man's going to take you. And he got a top hat on, and he was just sat there looking at me. And I'll never forget what he looked like at all. And I kept looking at the crack of the door in the bedroom because it was open, because Darren was on his PlayStation in the living room. And I kept looking at there, and I kept thinking that, you know, that is... that the man is there. And she cried like I've never heard her cry before in my life. I've never heard her cry like it. She literally screamed. So then I woke up out of the dream, absolutely hysterical, shaking like mad. I literally couldn't stop shaking. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. Literally couldn't get it out of my head as to what the man looked like. I still can't now, I still think of it. But it was weird, because then as soon as we came back, she would sit in her bouncer chair on her own. She started settling herself to sleep. She started drinking her bottles better. It was so strange. And also, I know they say that babies, they'll look into space and they'll smile and things like that. She did. At the bungalow, she would be constantly looking into space and smiling away. Since we come back to my mum's, she hasn't done it. She hasn't done it at all, which it kind of creeps me out a little bit as to why it was like that. But I will end this video here. I may do another one about depression, anxiety, as to, you know, what I went through before and what it was like, and things like that, because there is a lot of things that add to depression and anxiety, you know, everyday life. Everybody's got a bit of anxiety in them. Everybody's got a bit of depression in them. And I'll also tell you about how I try and keep myself up and happy and things. But hopefully you liked the video, and we will go and get a bottle, and then we will go to B&M, and we will see you all very soon. Say bye!